Yo, what's going on everybody? This is Brendan with Neuway Media, back again for another video, and in today's video we're going to be talking all about how to light a horror film with very minimal lighting. So we're going to be looking at a horror film that I shot last year. I'm going to be bringing up some clips behind me, and we're going to be taking a look together at a couple different setups with some diagrams, and I'll be talking about the lights that I used, where I put them, how I got the look, and all that stuff. I think you guys will really enjoy this because it's some really simple, really practical lighting techniques, and all of you guys have really enjoyed my previous lighting videos on my personal channel. Link will be in the description. So this is basically gonna be a tutorial on how to light a dark, contrasty, moody, very scary look for a horror film with very minimal lighting. So the lights that I used in this short film are the main big light that I used, the expensive rental light, was an Ari Sun Par 1200 watt HMI light, which was about, if I remember correctly, like about 150 bucks a day to rent. Not super crazy, and 1200 watts is a lot of output, and that allows you to create the moonlight look. I also used a China ball, which was my main key light, basically motivated by all the practicals in the scene. I used practical lights, of course, and I also used a small 150 watt Fresnel. Cool, so let's get into a couple different setups that I had in this movie. I'll break down the lighting and I'll basically explain how I did it. All right, so the first setup in this movie that I want to talk about, I think is really cool. It's this shot of our main actress basically blasting through this double doorway, looking really angry, and it's very dark, contrasty lighting, and the lighting for this was so simple, guys. As you can see in the background, right behind her is a practical lamp that has a very yellow, orange, warm shade on it, which creates some really nice color in the background and helps to separate her from the background because you have this nice bright source and then she's a little darker in the foreground, helps to separate her. And then her key light is just a China ball hanging directly above her. And as you can also see, she has a little bit of a rim light coming from her right side, from camera left, which is a little bit cooler in color temperature. And that is my 150 watt Fresnel with a CTB gel in front of it. And so I white balanced my camera to daylight 5600. By putting the blue gel in front of it, it makes it a pure white light as far as the way the camera sees it. And then that way, the practical and the China ball with tungsten bulbs in them look more orange and warm. So you get that color contrast from a little bit of a blue backlight rim light shining on her. And then the color contrast between that and the warm top light right in front of her and the warm background practical light. And that basically just makes it feel like there's a little bit of a moonlight coming in from somewhere off screen in the background. The final touch to this look is a little bit of haze in the room as well. It's really nice when you haze a background and you just have a little bit of that diffused scatter of the light itself. And that helps to pick up that fake moonlight essentially. So you get a little bit of a glow in the back, a little bit of a cooler type of color temperature glow, which is really nice. All right, so the next setup we're gonna be talking about is the same exact angle, essentially, and the same exact location, but this scene takes place in the daytime instead of the nighttime. So you can see the exact same location, the same angle, but how I created the look for daytime instead of night. And essentially, the only difference is, instead of using the China ball as her key light, I basically put in the same exact location one of my LED panels that I own with a softbox on it, which is daylight balanced, so it matched the ambient light in the room. And I basically put that again as sort of a top down right in front of her face, basically booming right over the top of the frame and shining on her. So it creates shadows in the similar position as in the previous scene, but it's basically the key, and there's more daylight ambience to fill in, so there's lower contrast in the scene. And then as her rim light, I have the exact same 150 watt Fresnel with a CTB gel on it, basically, again, boomed over that doorway, shining on her, and you can really see the way that edges her arms and her head, and basically gives her this really nice sort of halo effect around her whole body. And then again, that extra little magical touch is that little bit of ambient haze in the background, which just helps to sort of bloom out that backlight a little bit and create a little bit more atmosphere, make it feel a little bit more spooky. Now, the next scene I want to talk about is the easiest scene that we lit in this whole movie, and we didn't do anything to the lighting. We shot this at a specific time of day that I knew the sunlight would be coming through the window here, and I put a little bit of haze in the room. The haze caught the real sunlight and just created these beautiful God rays in the room. As you can see, the sunlight came in, it bounced off the bed sheets, and basically that bounce light from the sun bouncing back into her face is her key light, and that's it. It's all natural lighting with a little bit of haze, and it creates an amazingly cinematic look with basically no effort whatsoever. So the next lighting setup that I want to talk about is a nighttime scene taking place in the foyer of this really creepy house. Now this is one of those setups where the location is like the most important part, and you can create a really eerie look just by having really good production design, really good locations. So this location basically shot itself. It was really gorgeous, this old creepy 1800s era house, and the only lighting in the scene was one china ball in the foreground right by camera as just a little bit of an ambient fill, and we dimmed that down a little bit and dimmed it down to match the color temperature of the chandelier, which was creating the rest of the ambience and a little bit of a top light on our actress as she walked by. You'll also see there's a little bit of blue light through the windows in the background there, and that is our HMI. And I think we had a CTB gel on there to make it even more blue. Otherwise, it would have just looked like white light, and there's a little bit of a blue color there. And we basically shined that right on the pillars on the porch to create that like bluish moonlight look. Now, obviously, we all know moonlight isn't actually blue, but creating that color shift helps to sort of sell that look. It works for a horror film, especially, I think, or any type of film where you're getting a little bit more expressionistic with the lighting. And the reverse angle, the following angle right after that shot, is basically the reverse from the outside looking in through the doorway after our character opens the door. We had that same practical lamp from the first setup I talked about, that in the background with that sort of yellowish light. We had the chandelier, which was a practical light. Both were already on location, and I just turned those lights on and left them on. And then right just to the right of the door frame here, I hung my china ball just out of frame, just past that door frame to key her from her left side from camera right side. I think it was a 32-inch china ball, and it's the same light that is lighting me right now in this setup, just off frame right here, and it has 100-watt tungsten normal household 120 volt light bulb in it. For a lot of these setups, I actually did put that china ball on a dimmer switch, and I dimmed it down to about 50%. When you dim a tungsten filament bulb, it warms up the color temperature even more. And then besides the china ball and the practicals, the only other thing I did for this setup is I left that HMI outside, and I just made sure it was shining on our actress's back. So you get a little bit of that blue sort of ambient spill onto the back of the character in the foreground. This was one of the other easier setups that we did in the whole film because it's one-point lighting. One really easy technique you can do when you're doing nighttime scenes, if it's only lit by moonlight with no practicals turned on whatsoever, you basically just make the moonlight come from the background shining towards camera. So this was, believe it or not, a single 150-watt Fresnel tungsten light, really low output, just put to flood with no gel on it whatsoever, and I just changed the color temperature in camera to make the color blue. The reason I did that instead of putting a blue gel on it is that putting a blue gel on it would cut a huge amount of its output. And since it was the only light that we were using in the scene, I needed it to have a lot of punch. Also added a little bit of haze in the room, which helps a lot for exposure because again, the haze diffracts the light coming from the background. So even if you don't have a light shining on the back wall, because the light is passing in front of the back wall and then the haze basically catches that light, it basically helps illuminate the room and helps with your exposure while helping keep the foreground in silhouette, which creates that contrast and separation. Okay, so I think by now you're getting the gist of how I approached lighting this movie and how basically I approach lighting most of my nighttime interior scenes. For this scene, again, it's that moonlight coming from behind towards the camera. And in this instance, I put that par light outside and shined it through the window, and that moonlight lit up the back of this stairwell here. Then I turned that practical lamp on, which again creates really nice color contrast and helps break up the shot a little bit so it's not so monochromatic. And finally, she has a flashlight in her hand. By hazing up the room, that flashlight creates a really, really cool ray of light blasting through the scene, and it's such an easy way to create a really dramatic look. And super fun, super easy and fast to set up, and it looks incredible. Yeah, so that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. That was a whole lot of breakdown for a whole lot of different scenarios and different scenes. So that was a lot of information. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. If you have any questions, be sure to leave them in the comments below. I'm happy to answer them. I'm happy to talk more about the lights that I used if you have any questions about that. Yeah, so again, thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.